Dr. Vanessa Clark steps onto the plane, rolling her sleek carry-on behind her. As a highly respected surgeon and keynote speaker at an international medical conference, she's used to traveling in luxury. First-class cabins, quiet lounges, and personalized service have become her norm. But today feels different. As she walks down the aisle, dressed in an elegant yet comfortable outfit, she notices subtle glances from some passengers. Some are neutral, others curious, but one pair of eyes holds something else entirely: judgment. Lisa, a senior flight attendant with a tight smile and scrutinizing gaze, watches her closely. Vanessa reaches her assigned seat, 4A, a plush first-class window seat, and starts to settle in. But before she can even place her purse in the overhead bin, Lisa steps forward, her posture stiff. "Ma'am," Lisa says, forcing a polite tone, "are you sure this is your seat?" Vanessa, used to these kinds of microaggressions, maintains her composure. She offers a small, patient smile as she reaches into her designer handbag and pulls out her boarding pass. "Yes, I'm sure," she replies, handing it over. Lisa takes the pass and scans it, her lips pressing into a thin line. She checks it once, then again. Her eyes narrow slightly before she reluctantly hands it back. "All right," she says slowly. "We've just had some issues before with passengers accidentally sitting in first class." Vanessa catches the hesitation in Lisa's voice, the subtle implication behind her words. Other passengers glance up from their seats, sensing the tension. One man in a business suit frowns slightly, while an elderly woman raises an eyebrow. Vanessa slides her boarding pass back into her bag, keeping her voice even. "I hope you're checking every passenger this thoroughly." Lisa's lips twitch, but she says nothing. Instead, she gives Vanessa one last glance before stepping away. Will Lisa push the issue further? Vanessa exhales slowly, gripping the armrest as she watches Lisa hesitate near the flight attendant station. Something tells her this isn't over. Sure enough, Lisa turns back, stepping closer with a smirk that barely hides her skepticism. "Are you sure this is your ticket?" she asks, her tone dripping with false politeness. Vanessa blinks, momentarily stunned by the audacity. Had she not just handed over her boarding pass? Had Lisa not already verified it? Keeping her composure, Vanessa meets her gaze. "Yes," she says, voice calm but firm. "I'm sure." Lisa folds her arms, tilting her head. "It's just that we've had issues before with passengers sneaking into first class," she says, her voice a little louder, as if trying to gather an audience. Vanessa stiffens. There it is. Not a simple mistake, not a misunderstanding, a blatant accusation. Nearby, a businessman in a crisp gray suit looks up from his laptop, frowning at the exchange. Across the aisle, an older woman lowers her magazine, raising an eyebrow. Vanessa feels her pulse quicken, but she refuses to let Lisa see even a flicker of frustration. She's been here before, judged, underestimated, dismissed, but today, she isn't just any passenger. Today, she's someone with power. Lisa shifts, clearly expecting Vanessa to shrink back, to apologize, to quietly move. Instead, Vanessa leans back in her seat, crosses her legs, and lifts her chin. "And tell me, Lisa," she says smoothly, "do you verify every first-class passenger this way? Or is there something about me that made you assume I don't belong here?" Lisa's smirk falters. How will Vanessa respond to this insult? Lisa purses her lips, clearly unsatisfied. She shifts her weight, tapping her fingers against the flight manifest in her hand. "It's just that sometimes, there are mix-ups," she says with a forced smile. "Maybe you were mistakenly upgraded?" Vanessa's patience is running thin. She clasps her hands together and exhales slowly before responding. "I paid for this seat," she says, her voice steady. "Do you ask every passenger this many questions?" Lisa's smirk returns, as if she's been waiting for this. "Well, we just have to make sure everything is in order." Vanessa narrows her eyes. "In order," she repeats, as if testing the words. Then she leans forward just slightly. "Let me ask you this, Lisa. Do you verify every first-class passenger this way, or just the ones who look like me?" Lisa scoffs, rolling her eyes. "Ma'am, I just need to confirm you belong here." Vanessa tilts her head, barely suppressing a laugh. "Belong here?" she echoes. By now, other passengers are listening intently, their eyes darting between Vanessa and Lisa. A few have exchanged uneasy glances, and a soft murmur has started spreading through the cabin. That's when the businessman from earlier, an older gentleman in a tailored gray suit, closes his laptop and sits up straight. He clears his throat loudly, drawing Lisa's attention. "Excuse me," he says, his voice firm. "She already showed you her ticket. What exactly is the issue here?" Lisa falters for just a second before straightening. I just need to verify." "Verify what?" the businessman presses. "Because it looks to me like you're harassing a paying customer." Lisa swallows, clearly realizing that she's losing control of the situation. The tension in the cabin thickens. The murmurs among the passengers grow louder. Will Lisa back down or make things worse? Lisa exhales sharply, frustration creeping into her expression. She turns abruptly and waves over another flight attendant, raising her voice just enough for nearby passengers to hear. "I need you to double-check this passenger's ticket," she says, placing heavy emphasis on the word "this." Vanessa clenches her jaw but remains composed, aware that every eye in the first-class cabin is now on her. A few passengers exchange glances, whispering among themselves. The businessman from earlier folds his arms, clearly unimpressed. The second flight attendant, a younger man with a polite smile, arrives and glances at the ticket in Vanessa's hand. He studies it for only a second before looking up, confusion written all over his face. "Lisa, her ticket is perfectly fine," he says, his brows furrowing. "She's assigned to this seat." Lisa's face reddens. "Are you sure?" She pushes. "Maybe the system made an error." The co-attendant sighs. "There's no error. She's supposed to be here." Vanessa, still calm, but now visibly exhausted by the ordeal, takes a deep breath. She doesn't argue. She doesn't raise her voice. Instead, she reaches into her handbag and pulls out her phone. Lisa frowns. "What are you doing?" Vanessa lifts her phone slightly, her thumb hovering over the screen. "I'm making a call," she says smoothly, "and you'll want to hear who picks up." The murmurs around them grow louder. Lisa swallows hard, suddenly looking less sure of herself. Who is Vanessa calling? Vanessa presses her phone to her ear, her voice composed yet commanding. "Captain Reynolds?" "Yes, I need a moment of your time." Lisa's expression changes instantly, her confidence replaced with uncertainty. The tension in the first-class cabin thickens as passengers, previously minding their own business, now openly watch the interaction. The businessman sitting across the aisle tilts his head, clearly intrigued. A woman in the next row puts down her magazine, glancing between Vanessa and Lisa. Even the flight attendant standing next to Lisa shifts uncomfortably, sensing that something serious is about to happen. Lisa tries to regain control of the situation. "Excuse me, ma'am, there's no need for—" Vanessa calmly raises a hand, cutting her off mid-sentence. She's done being disrespected. Then the sound of the cockpit door unlocking echoes through the cabin. A moment later, a tall, uniformed pilot steps out. Captain Reynolds, a seasoned aviator in his late 50s, carries himself with quiet authority. His crisp uniform is adorned with medals and stripes, signaling years of experience. He scans the scene with sharp blue eyes, immediately locking onto Vanessa. For a moment, his face remains neutral, assessing the situation. But then, recognition sparks in his eyes, and his entire demeanor shifts. His stern expression softens, and he offers a surprised yet warm smile. "Dr. Clark," he exclaims, striding toward her. His voice, filled with genuine enthusiasm, carries through the cabin. What a pleasant surprise. I wasn't expecting to see you on this flight. Gasps ripple through the rows of passengers. A few whisper amongst themselves. Dr. Clark? Who exactly is she? Lisa visibly flinches. Her mouth opens slightly as she processes what she just heard. Vanessa remains seated, her posture poised, her expression unwavering. She finally looks up at Lisa, her voice smooth and steady. I was just about to ask the same thing, Captain. Captain Reynolds turns his attention to Lisa. His once welcoming expression hardens. Is there an issue here? His tone is firm, but it's clear he already senses the answer. Lisa stammers, scrambling to find the right words. I was just verifying her ticket, Captain. We've had incidents of passengers sneaking into first class before, so I was just being cautious. Vanessa tilts her head, unimpressed. And how often do you interrogate passengers who actually belong here? Captain Reynolds folds his arms, his expression unreadable but intense. Lisa, now visibly nervous, looks between them. Passengers remain silent, waiting. The energy in the cabin has completely shifted. The power dynamic has flipped, and Lisa knows she's in trouble. What connection does Vanessa have to the captain? Captain Reynolds strides into the first-class cabin with the kind of authority that turns heads. The murmurs among the passengers hush immediately. His crisp uniform, polished shoes, and commanding presence make it clear this is not a man who tolerates nonsense. But the real shock comes when he locks eyes with Vanessa, and his face softens into a warm smile. Dr. Clark, it's been a while. How's the aviation conference going? Lisa's entire body stiffens. She barely hears the gasps from the surrounding passengers as she processes what just happened. Dr. Clark, her stomach twists. The woman she just humiliated isn't just a wealthy first-class passenger. She's someone important. Vanessa remains composed, her fingers still resting on her phone. She tilts her head, watching Lisa's reaction before answering. The conference is going well, Captain. I almost didn't make it, though. I had an interesting experience while boarding. The sharp professionalism in Captain Reynolds' expression barely masks his concern. His gaze flicks toward Lisa before returning to Vanessa. Interesting how? Vanessa lets out a slow breath, then gestures subtly toward Lisa. It seems that some of your crew believe I need to prove I belong in first class. The silence that follows is suffocating. The businessman who had defended Vanessa earlier slowly leans back in his seat, shaking his head. A woman across the aisle presses her lips together in disapproval. Even passengers in economy are peeking through the curtains, sensing the tension. Lisa's heartbeat pounds in her ears. This is spiraling fast. She tries to salvage the situation, straightening her posture and forcing a weak smile. Captain, I was just following standard security measures. We've had incidents before with passengers taking seats that aren't theirs. And Captain Reynolds holds up a hand, cutting her off. His voice is sharp, unwavering. Lisa, I don't need excuses. What I need is an explanation. Lisa's throat tightens. She glances at Vanessa, silently pleading for some kind of mercy, but Vanessa is watching her with the calm patience of someone who's used to moments like these, someone who has spent a lifetime dealing with people like Lisa. Vanessa shifts in her seat, adjusting her blazer. You see, Captain, Lisa here didn't question anyone else in this section about whether or not they belonged. Just me. Captain Reynolds' face hardens. He turns fully to Lisa now, voice dropping lower. Dr. Clark doesn't just sit in first class. She is one of the leading aviation safety experts in the country. In fact, she consults for multiple airlines, advising them on passenger experience and crew conduct. The weight of those words crushes Lisa. Passengers react instantly, some murmuring in disbelief, others shaking their heads in quiet disgust. One man in the front row lets out a low whistle. "Well, ain't that something?" he mutters under his breath. Lisa opens her mouth, but no sound comes out. Her hands are clammy, gripping the notepad she had used just moments ago to question Vanessa's presence in first class. Vanessa raises a single eyebrow, watching Lisa struggle for words. "Now, Lisa, tell me," she says slowly, "would you have questioned me like this if I looked a little different?" Lisa blinks rapidly, knowing there is no right answer. If she says yes, she admits to profiling Vanessa. If she says no, she exposes her own double standard. Captain Reynolds takes a step closer. "Doctor, Clark, would you like to take this issue up with the airline directly, or should I handle it myself?" Lisa's breathing turns shallow. Her entire career, her future, now rests in Vanessa's hands. Will Vanessa let this slide or take action? Vanessa sits back in her seat, hands folded neatly in her lap, her expression calm but firm. The entire first-class cabin watches in tense silence. She takes a deep breath before speaking, her voice steady but powerful. "Captain, when I boarded this flight, I was excited for a peaceful trip. Instead, I was treated as if I didn't belong. I was interrogated, humiliated, and forced to prove that my ticket was legitimate, something that not a single other passenger had to endure." Lisa flinches, her hands gripping the edge of her uniform as she glances around. The weight of the stares from passengers burns into her skin. The businessman who had defended Vanessa earlier clears his throat and speaks up. "I saw everything. She didn't question me. Didn't ask the man behind me. Just her." He nods toward Vanessa, and we all know why. A woman across the aisle shakes her head. I knew something was off when she kept pressing even after seeing the ticket. Another passenger mutters, "Disgusting." The tension thickens. Lisa shifts uncomfortably, her eyes darting toward the captain, silently pleading for an escape. But Captain Reynolds is stone-faced. He turns toward Vanessa. "Doctor, Clark, I sincerely apologize. This should never have happened." Vanessa acknowledges his apology with a small nod. "Captain, I appreciate that. But apologies alone don't fix patterns like this. What happens next?" Captain Reynolds inhales deeply, then pivots toward Lisa. His voice is sharper now, carrying the weight of command. "Lisa, follow me, now." Lisa's face drains of color. She swallows hard, her legs stiff as she hesitantly steps forward. The once confident smirk she had when questioning Vanessa is gone, replaced with a nervous grimace. She follows Captain Reynolds toward the front of the plane, each step heavier than the last. The walk feels endless. Every passenger is watching. Some whisper. Others shake their heads in disapproval. When they reach the galley, Lisa's stomach sinks further, because standing there, arms crossed, is a senior flight supervisor. The older woman's expression is unreadable, but the tension in the air is suffocating. Lisa's breath quickens. She already knows. This isn't just a slap on the wrist. What will happen to Lisa's job? Lisa stands frozen, her breathing shallow as she watches Captain Reynolds and the senior flight supervisor exchange glances. The murmurs from first-class passengers still fill the cabin, the weight of their judgment pressing down on her like a ton of bricks. She swallows hard, but her throat feels tight. Captain Reynolds doesn't mince words. His expression is sharp, controlled, but unmistakably angry. "Lisa, I need you to understand exactly what you've done today." His voice is low, firm, and full of authority. "You didn't just question a passenger. You humiliated one of the most respected aviation experts in the country." Lisa blinks in confusion, her lips parting slightly. "Aviation expert?" The senior flight supervisor, arms crossed, tilts her head. "That's right. Dr. Clark is one of the keynote speakers at the International Aviation Conference. She's not just a guest on this flight. She's an honored one." Lisa's stomach twists. The confidence she had just minutes ago is gone. Vanessa, still seated, watches the scene unfold, her expression unreadable. She doesn't interrupt, allowing them to process the gravity of the situation. I didn't know," Lisa finally mutters, her voice barely above a whisper. Captain Reynolds scoffs. "That's exactly the problem. You didn't know, but you assumed." He glares at her. "And what did you assume? That she didn't belong in first class? That she somehow cheated her way into a seat she paid for?" Lisa's eyes dart around the small galley, looking for an escape. But there isn't one. The supervisor swipes through a digital report on her tablet. "Lisa, this isn't the first complaint we've had about you. We've received reports of you treating certain passengers unfairly, questioning their seats, giving them unnecessary trouble. But today, it went too far." Lisa's mouth opens, but no words come out. "This could have been avoided the moment she showed you her ticket," the supervisor continues. "But instead, you escalated the situation. You called in backup for no reason. And worst of all, you made a first-class passenger feel like a criminal just for being here." The businessman who had spoken up earlier steps forward. "I saw everything," he says, looking the supervisor in the eye. "She didn't question me once, not once. But as soon as Dr. Clark sat down, she treated her like a fraud. This wasn't a mistake. This was targeted." More murmurs spread throughout the first-class cabin, and Lisa feels her face burn with shame. Vanessa finally speaks, her voice calm but strong. "I don't want an apology. I don't need one. What I want is for this to stop happening, not just to me, but to everyone who has been treated like this." Captain Reynolds nods, his jaw tightening. "Lisa, you are removed from duty, effective immediately." Lisa's entire body stiffens. "What?" "You'll be escorted off once we land," the supervisor adds. "You will be placed under immediate review, and, considering the number of past complaints, I can assure you, you won't be working another flight for this airline again." Lisa stares at them in shock. Her mind races. Fired? Just like that? She had worked here for years, but one mistake, one miscalculation, had just cost her everything. The supervisor's voice cuts through her thoughts. "Dr. Clark, I want to personally apologize for what happened today. We will be reviewing our training policies to make sure this never happens again." Vanessa watches Lisa for a moment before speaking. "This isn't just about me. It's about a larger problem that needs fixing." She turns to Captain Reynolds and the supervisor. "I'm willing to work with you to make sure future flight attendants don't repeat these mistakes." Lisa sways slightly, realizing just how deeply she miscalculated the situation. Not only had she targeted the wrong person, but that person was now actively changing the very system she had abused. Captain Reynolds nods at Vanessa. "Thank you, Dr. Clark. Your voice matters in this." "And Lisa." He turns back to the disgraced flight attendant. "You should think long and hard about what you did today." Lisa lowers her head, unable to meet anyone's gaze. As she is escorted away, Vanessa exhales, feeling the weight of the moment settle in. She turns back to her seat, other passengers still watching in admiration. The businessman leans over with a small smile. "You handled that with grace." Vanessa simply nods. "I've had practice. Will this moment spark larger change?" Within hours of landing, the internet explodes. Videos taken by passengers flood social media. Clips of Lisa's arrogant questioning, Vanessa's dignified response, and the moment Captain Reynolds pulled Lisa from duty. The footage sparks outrage. Hashtags like "Mahacho Fly Fair for All" and "You Respect First Class" start trending. News outlets quickly pick up the story, reporting on how a successful black woman was humiliated for simply sitting in the first-class seat she paid for. Comment sections fill with people sharing their own experiences of discrimination while traveling. The airline is forced to respond. Within a day, their official social media accounts release a statement. "We deeply regret the incident involving Dr. Vanessa Clark. Discrimination has no place in our company. The flight attendant involved has been terminated, and we are reviewing our training policies to prevent future occurrences." The response is swift, but people aren't satisfied with just words. Many demand action, policy changes, better training, and accountability. Meanwhile, Vanessa finds herself in the spotlight. Interview requests pour in, and she finally agrees to speak on national television. Sitting across from a well-known anchor, she remains composed. "This isn't just about me," she says. "It's about the thousands of people who experience discrimination every day, but don't have the platform to fight back. This is about changing the culture of air travel." A young black woman comments on one of the viral videos. "Because of you, airlines will think twice before treating us unfairly." Vanessa reads the comment and smiles, feeling the weight of the moment. This isn't just a personal victory, it's a step toward change. Will other airlines take action to prevent similar situations? Weeks later, Vanessa finds herself on stage at an aviation panel, standing before an audience filled with industry leaders, flight attendants, and travelers. The topic of discussion: inclusivity and respect in air travel. She adjusts the microphone and takes a deep breath. "This isn't about power," she begins. "It's about basic human dignity. No one should have to justify their presence in a space they rightfully belong to." The audience nods, some taking notes, others listening intently. Her experience has sparked an industry-wide conversation, forcing airlines to acknowledge a problem they had ignored for too long. In response to the backlash, the airline she flew with announces a new mandatory diversity and sensitivity training program for all staff. A spokesperson admits on live television, "We failed Dr. Clark that day, but we are committed to doing better." Vanessa doesn't just stop at speaking engagements. She partners with advocacy groups to push for better treatment of all passengers. More travelers start coming forward with their own stories, showing that change was long overdue. A few weeks later, Vanessa boards another flight. As she walks into first class, she prepares herself for another possible confrontation. But this time, something is different. A smiling flight attendant greets her warmly. "Welcome aboard, Dr. Clark. Can I get you anything to make your flight more comfortable?" Vanessa smiles back, feeling the weight of progress in that simple interaction. Judging someone by appearance is a mistake you may never recover from.